Erev Tov, everyone. Good evening. I only thought it fitting to begin our evening together in some of the song we know and love. These words of praise, these words of gratitude, looking up, saying thank you, and admiring the awe in the world. Sounds like this. Ozi vezimrat ya vayehi lishua. Try that with us. Ozi vezimrat ya vayehi lishua. Second part. Ozi vezimrat ya vayehi lishua. Ozi vezimrat ya vayehi lishua. Pick your favorite part. Ozi vezimrat ya vayehi lishua. Let's take a moment to plant our feet, to get cozy, and let's take a big deep breath in together and out. One more in and out. And music is best enjoyed in the company of others. So I wanted to give you a moment to introduce yourself to those around you. Find a new friend, say hello, say Erev Tov, and we will come back together in just a minute.
Nice Yeti full of water. I think, oh, it's mine. The same thing. Not exactly, but cheers.
I'm gonna wallow in it myself.
But is yours full of water? Oh, you don't have to say, but mine is.
Okay, fancy. That's fancy.
Very nice. That's awesome.
Although the food is absolutely delicious, there's like a garlic bomb that exploded inside of my mouth. It's not the worst thing. I kind of wish I had a mint.
Yeah, I get that. I got what you need.
Ozi vezimrat ya vayehi lishua. Let's try the high part. Ozi vezimrat ya vayehi lishua. Last time. Ozi vezimrat ya vayehi lishua. There is nothing like people coming together to make song. There is nothing like the magic of shared prayer. And in many ways, Ozi vezimrat ya represents the end of the story we're going to tell. What does it mean for our music to be enjoyed in this space in the most literal sense? By people in a circle, singing together, understanding that God is not some king in a chair up there, but it's here. And it is within us, and it is within this. People coming together. So we are going to experience something extraordinary, which is that development and how it happened. And I want to thank all of my incredible teachers and mentors. You'll hear me say thank you many, many times this evening, but I want to thank the folks at TBE who made this possible during a busy time of year and who opened their arms to me once again. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So we are moving from 1948 to 2011 together, and we're going to go chapter by chapter, just as if you are my thesis review committee together. And only one of you was actually there. Professor Krasner, where are you? Professor Krasner is the only one who actually sat through it. Please clap for the professor. He will come up again. So I want to begin with this. It's a quote from Abraham Joshua Heschel. It's from his book, God in Search of Man. Heschel says this: "The primary purpose of prayer is to praise, to sing, to chant, because the essence of prayer is a song, and man cannot live without a song. Prayer may not save us, but prayer may make us worthy of being saved." Music has been instrumental to Reform Judaism since its earliest days, but that role has never been static. When I arrived to Brandeis 4 years ago, the music of my Reform upbringing felt timeless to me. Songs I learned in childhood I felt had existed since Sinai itself. You can laugh at that. And it was only when being put in conversation with such a vast plurality of Jews that I realized this tradition, which I experienced as timeless, was not only new, but constantly changing. And to me, our songs are intrinsically tied to the places in which we sing them. And I'm a little bit of an architecture fanatic, which I won't tangent on. But I will say, I want to take you back to Detroit in 1956 is this picture. Can everyone reach down and feel the velvet of your seats? Feel the red velvet. So I want you to imagine these are a more modern version of the deep sunken theater seats that creaked, right? Anytime you're standing or sitting. And inside of these vast sanctuaries, you'll notice it's 2 big aisles. Compare that to the space we're in today. So you notice these vast seats. We are plopped in this velvet. And that in many ways is emblematic of the theology of the time. And you'll notice on top reads, Da lifnei mi ata omed, know before whom you stand. So not only is our architecture a musical statement in that we want our buildings to be circles because they amplify sound easier, but so too is it a theological one. We are imagining God as something above and something higher from which we're drawing love from. I want to begin with this quote from Herbert Fromm, who's a character who'll come up later, but he addresses this directly in his book, someone who Cantor Einhorn knew well. And he writes, "A liturgical composer must never allow himself to be pulled down by the leveling tastes of the masses." That's you. He should remember, note the he, I was raised by feminists, just clocking it. He should remember a commandment as seen in the inscription of many of our Torah scrolls, Da lifnei mi ata omed, know before whom you stand, 5 words, 5 fingers of a pointed hand. In that we see this brought to life once again. This was the person composing the music just down the road in Temple, Israel. And so in this way, we see the theology come alive. I want to transition and share a little bit about how this project was put together. This is an oral history. I spent a year, not in archives, not researching synagogue bins and folders, but I spent it chatting with people. Shocking, I know. Totally. And the exciting part is if you look around the room, you'll see a couple of these faces pop up on the screen. So the first category is Jewish ethnomusicologists. Those are represented by the folks on the left. There are faculty and leadership of now the Debbie Friedman School of Sacred Music, some of our nearest and dearest faculty, friends, and mentors here at Beth Elohim. Practitioners of the field was an arbitrary category that I created to sort of encompass anyone involved in the making of this music. We see Cantor Zell, Safran, and Einhorn represented in that group. We see Rabbi Elaine Zecker of Temple Israel. And then we have our historians. Those are folks like my beloved Professor Krasner, Professor Jonathan Sarna, Mark Kligman, former head of the School of Sacred Music, now runs the Milken Archives at the University of California, Los Angeles, and Judy Panolis, who is also here with us, who is a former Brandeis librarian, an expert on the field. And we had 2 choir professionals. And the thing I want to emphasize in this part is the extent to which this history was a deeply personal thing. My Zoom room had many laughs, it had many cries, it had moments where people said, "You better not publish that." It had moments when people asked me to stop the recording to speak in confidence, but moments they had. As I said earlier, this story has both peaks and valleys, and it's a deeply, deeply personal one. And these are the people who lived this transformation. But it also must be put in conversation with archival research, and I look forward to being one of the people who helps champion that work in the years to come. So, chapter 1. I now want to turn to 1948 to 1959, the post-war and birth of the School of Sacred Music. And Judy Panolis wrote in the introduction to Cantor Klepper's book, she wrote this. She said, "It's possible that the greatest era of sacred art composition occurred from 1990 to 1960. She continues that the composers of the day aimed to create Jewish choral music which could uplift the soul, enlighten congregations, and she shares that the focus on the time was on high art and good aesthetics based on Western sensibilities. This music functionally had 3 aims in the 1940s and 50s. It was spiritual elevation, aesthetic refinement, and a Jewish desire for American acculturation and cultural legitimacy." 1948 is a year of creation for the Jewish people. That's why I began it. Does anyone have an idea what else, aside from these 2 things, was created in 1948? Did you say me? Good answer. Amazing. That is hysterical. That's awesome. One other thing was created in 1948. Brandeis! Excellent. I got to represent our alma mater, or soon-to-be alma mater. So the School of Sacred Music was founded at the Hebrew Union College in 1948, representing a step forward from this post-war milieu for American Jewry. The State of Israel was founded, and so too was Brandeis University. Jonathan Sarna, in our interview, and I promise we'll sing soon, Jonathan Sarna, in our interview, shared that the School of Sacred Music at the Hebrew Union College, not yet combined with JIR, is one of the various institutions that reflect the sense that America, following the Second World War, is going to have to lead the diaspora. No longer would Reform Judaism be able to look back and draw answers from Vienna and the German state as they had in the past. We begin in this moment of creating an identity. American Jewry is reconciling with what it means to have lived after the Holocaust and understanding how to build forward. And in those sanctuaries, in those places in Detroit, vast settings, such as this setting by Cantor Israel Alter and Kochko, to me is one of the most emblematic pieces. And while it is not of the choral tradition, it offers us, from the era of Rosh Hashanah liturgy, a sense of the cantor as what I like to think of as a sacred interpreter, someone who is speaking on behalf of the congregation, and this music is to wash over us. So I'm thrilled to offer you the setting of Hineni. Hineni he'ani mima'as nir'ash v'nifchad mipachad Yoshev tehilot Yisrael Bati לעמוד ולהתחנן לפניך על עמך ישראל אשר שלחוני ואף על פי שאני וחדי והגון לך על כן אבקש ממך, אלוהי אברהם, אלוהי יצחק, ואלוהי יעקב. אדוני, אדוני, אל רחום וחנון, אלוהי ישראל שדי, איום ונורא, יהנה מצליח דרכי, אשר אני הולך לעמוד ולבקש רחמים עליי ועל שולחי. נא אל תפשיעם בחטאותיי, ותכוון בעוונותיי, כי חוטא ופושע אני. Adonai, Adonai, merciful and gracious God, who inspires awe. I pray to you for success on my path and for my community. May my deeds cause them no shame, and may their deeds cause me no shame. Such music offers us this sacred interpretation of our text, but as you felt, there was no room for your voice in such a composition. Your voice was to listen. And so, on the other side of this more Eastern European sound was a rich American choral tradition. And it's happening, this rich choral tradition happens on the backdrop of American suburbanization and the ritualization of the synagogue. And one of my favorite examples is the melody of Candle Blessings, which we used earlier. Actually is from this period, written by A.W. Binder. And I want you to listen to it and see how it feels different, and also see how it might feel similar to what we do here at Beth Elohim.
I, the Lord, have set thee for a covenant of the people, for a light unto the nations. Therefore, in the spirit of our ancient tradition that hallows and unites Israel in all lands and in all ages, do we now kindle the Sabbath light. Blessed art thou, Lord our God, to kindle.
So you can imagine that that feels a little different than what Shabbat looks like here at Beth Elohim. I was going to say, next week, you can come back and hear Professor Krasner as Stephen S. Wise, and you can hear Cantor Zell and Spike as a 12-part choir. But you can imagine that that's a pretty expensive hobby, so to speak. It's a lot of musicians, it's a lot of time, but it is deeply emblematic of this really American desire to fit in, and this really American desire to fit in to the Western choral tradition. So we now move to the 1960s, and I want to begin with this quote from Cantor Evan Kent. In the 1960s, you can imagine, as the choral traditions make up the 1950s, this tradition of choral music continues, but things start to look a little different as the 1960s roll around. So, Cantor Evan shared with me, when we sang "You and I Can Change the World," we really believed it. There becomes a physical embodiment of the camp experience. They put their arms around each other when they sing Shalom Rav, and it becomes part of them for the rest of their lives. This tradition of American camping, raise your hands if you went to summer camp growing up, Jewish overnight camp. Right, it lasts with people. And that tradition really means something to people. And so, in the backdrop of all this camping, the choral tradition continues. This is a choir picture, and I also think, Cantor Zell, I think we can get these robes back for TBE. I don't know. I think we can make it happen. This is Max Janowski's synagogue. You'll see there is Janowski and his wife, who does not get a name quite yet. She's just listed as Mrs. Max Janowski. And during this period is when Janowski writes, Avinu Malkeinu Shema Koleinu. So you can imagine we're transitioning from this very American choral tradition, but we have these beautiful, majestic compositions coming out. And I wanted to share one of them, written by Max Helfman. It is his setting of Ahavat Olam. And I hope it situates you in this moment, and that it brings you some meaning too. Ahavat Olam Beit Yisrael Amcha Havta Torah u'mitzvot chukim u'mishpatim otanu limadeta Al Kain Adonai Eloheinu B'shoch beinu Uvekumeinu Nasiach bechukecha V'nismach b'divrei Toratecha Toratecha uvemitzvotecha leolam leolam vaed ki hem chayenu ve'orech yameinu Uvahem nege yomam yomam valayla ve'ahavatcha al ta'asir mimenu le'olamim Baruch atah Adonai Israel. And that takes us to the 1967 war, the Six-Day War, and so too in my thesis do I write about the beginnings of the American folk revolution. Mark Kligman, referenced earlier, said, "The 1967 war was a watershed moment. Before it, reform and conservative camps were singing American folk and spirituals. After it, everything became Hebrew and Israeli." An overstatement. 2, immediately after the Six-Day War, Reformed Jews started singing in Hebrew. Camps that had virtually no Hebrew in the early 60s suddenly have oodles of it. And these 2 quotes not only represent the post-war milieu which brought the uptick of Hebrew, but it also brings about one of the most interesting pieces of this being an oral history versus a research project in the archives. Professor Krasner's research and the research of others actually show that the songbooks in the summer of 1968 looked remarkably like the ones in 1967. But in history, we have a tendency to flatten things, and things with cultural moments like wars become emblematic of things. And so you have this bifurcation of our narrative in, we know that in the summer of 1967, 8, and 9, it was slow and steady. But in our Jewish folk history, in our Jewish folk tales, we have this understanding that this war meant an uptick in cultural identity, an uptick in cultural pride, and the adoption of Hebrew. This is one of those pictures from Eisner Camp in August of 1963, and you can imagine these students, this is 63, yes, grappling with some of these different things. Around the same time was also Shlomo Karlebach's music, and it came up in a lot of interviews, and I have to first and foremost say that as a scholar and a feminist, I wrote about this extensively. There's a very well-documented history of Karlebach's sexual assaults and misconduct. But it is important to not run from those histories, but name them and name what they did to move us forward. So Karlebach brought forward the Hasidic nigun and brought forward so much incredible music into our Reformed tradition, and that happened in parallel to the Hasidic song festivals. And I want us to listen as I continue sharing some stories to one of those melodies. This is Nurit Hirsch's Oseh Shalom, which we sang earlier. And these Hasidic song festivals perfectly met the moment where America was ready for Hebrew music and ready for a heightened sense of pride in ourselves. And there was this beautiful music which offered the most perfect thing to uptake and pull into it. Let's listen for just a second. It's too beautiful to let it go by. Yasher koach. So we now turn to the 1970s, which we are turning towards participatory music, understanding the Hasidic folk song festivals that I shared about earlier, Sing Unto God, which is Debbie Friedman's first album, and Debbie Friedman herself. And Debbie wrote this: "I started writing because I felt left out. I felt so alone when I was sitting in services, the very place that should have cradled me and given me comfort and warmth. How would I ever find a place to belong when I didn't share a language, a common language with my fellow daveners? We were all strangers to one another, but we didn't have to be. There was a common denominator." One of the things that this history revealed was this matching of the moment. So Friedman, born in 1952 or 1951, was coming of age in the 70s. She writes her first album of Jewish music in 1972, and there's this broader conversation about feminization and ritualization happening concurrent to this. I had the chance to chat with Cantor Barbara Osfeld, a beloved colleague of Cantor Suffren's, and we spoke not only of fond memories of Jody, but of fond memories of this musical transition. In 1972 also marked the ordination of Rabbi Sally Preisand. And it also marked Cantor Klepper's release of his first LP, Kol Beseder, with Danny Freelander. And I wanted to offer, in the thesis, I write about the tale of the two Shalom Ravs. To me, these two pieces, these two prayers for peace, which you can see emerged from this necessity for peace music, offer us two beautiful windows into the time. So I wanted to put the Steinberg Shalom Rav, written by a Canadian, a beloved Canadian, and music director of the Holy Blossom Temple, and then the Klepper Freelander melody. So I am thrilled to invite up cantors I'll invite Cantor Zell to come up and sing Shalom Rav with me. And the voice of God agrees. And so I want you to imagine this moment we're in, and I want you to really soak this one up, because times they are changing, and they're changing quick. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam.
Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom.
Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom.
V'tov beinecha levarech et amcha Yisrael bechol et uvechol shah bishlomecha.
Baruch atah Adonai,
Oseh Shalom. So, now that we have sat in the beauty of this continued line from the 40s to the 70s of these long musical lines, I want to offer a different interpretation of the same words. And I'm thrilled my friend Spike is going to do it with me. And if you know it, please do sing along, because you've been hearing way too much of just me. We got to make some noise together.
We can definitely sing together. Ready?
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atah melech adon lechol Cantor Klepper, I hope we did you proud. We move now to the 80s. And the 1980s were marked by what Cantor Benji Ellen Schiller described to me as a culture war within synagogue music. At its core, this was a tension between two competing visions of Reform worship, one rooted in the classical liturgical tradition of the 1940s, and another shaped by the participatory ethos of the folk and camping movements. The 1980s also brought with them a serious reckoning for what was the role of the cantor. If the congregation was now being asked to sing, what was the cantor for? As Danny Freelander observed to me, the shift was not also musical, but theological. The cantor was no longer a mediator between the congregation and the divine. They were a facilitator of the congregation's encounter with the divine. And crucially, Joe Eglash, who is the director of Transcontinental Music Publications, also shared a really interesting insight, which was this: if it wasn't printed, it wasn't sung. So there was this interesting question of, is this power coming from the top, or is it coming from the bottom of the people? And I wanted to offer this quote by Cantor Rosalie Will, who shared this in our chat. She said, in the 1980s, music began to shift from something that was experienced externally to something happening to us or for us, to something created collectively by all of us. And you just felt it. But that did not mean that these beautiful, majestic settings were going anywhere. And Rabbi Freelander continued that part of this conversation of a question of authority also was the reality that there was a whole new generation of cantorial students coming up through camp who grew up with the role of the song leader at Kutz, and the music became the glue of the culture. But I wanted to offer one more of these grand settings, this written by Stephen Richards, and it is another setting, another piece, and I hope you'll join me if you know it. Cantors? Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu be'amecha Yisrael u'tefilatam be'ahava tikaber.
Tamid avodat Yisrael amecha El karov lechol kol
So moving forward in the 80s as someone who cares deeply about our politics and political science, I can't possibly speak about this decade without mentioning the impact of Reaganism and AIDS, respectively, on our theology and on our music. Greg Drinkwater and his scholarship puts it beautifully. To meet this moment of healing and this moment of reckoning that Reform Judaism found itself in, Debbie composed this setting of Misha Berach. And as Greg writes, it put healing into the public sphere. Becky Mann, a cantor and scholar of Debbie Friedman's life, wrote that Misha Berach reframed communal prayer as an intimate pastoral moment rather than a formal liturgical recitation. Misha Berach became the vehicle through which communal vulnerability could be sung, rather than spoken. So this evening, I want to ask you to do something rather blasphemous, which is this. I don't want you to sing along. I know. But only for the first verse, because I want you to actually plant your feet and sit with the reality that in this moment we needed someone to hold us and to pray for us. And Debbie often shared that healing of the soul and of the spirit is always possible, even when healing of the body is not. And so whatever it is that you are in need of healing of, I want to offer this first part of Misha Berach, and I hope that it washes over you. I pray that it brings you comfort and meaning. And then in the second verse, I hope we'll join together and offer it for our community. Misha Berach Avotenu Mikor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Let's join together. Misha Berach Imotenu Mikor HaBracha Le'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. May each of us receive a speedy and whole recovery. We now turn to the 1990s, which I write is when two musical worlds begin to become one. Debbie wrote this. You offer them a language of prayer through song. You give them spiritual access and a means of reclaiming the power of their own tradition and prayers. Va'ani tefilati, I am the prayer. When you become the prayer, you become the means by which those who wish to pray can first begin to understand the depth of tefillah. There is no separation between you and tefillah, or prayer, and not between you and the kahal, or the congregation. as we think about the shaping and changing of congregational life in the 90s, I'm often reminded of this piece, this La Dor Va Dor, that helped underpin and sustain this decade. And so I thought there was no better time than to ask both cantors to join me and sing. And in so many ways, this piece represented for my interviewees something deeply emblematic of the 90s, this sort of broad musical expression. And so we'll join together. ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד כי אל מלך גדול כי אל מלך גדול וקדוש אתה לדור ודור לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך ולנצח נצחים ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש ברוך אתה אדוני Lots of kisses. I have to get hugs
just
every
a Lador
time.
Vador moment here in which
Truly.
my teacher and predecessor to me, to Zach, and it's just sweet to be able to share in music together.
What a privilege it is.
And what a particular privilege to do it with Cantor Einhorn's face right behind us in that moment.
Is that Cantor Einhorn?
It is. So there is a very, very small synagogue down the road. It's very small, and it's called Temple Israel. And in an irony not lost on me, the one case study of my thesis, growing up with a Canadian cantor, writing a thesis on American Jewish music, and the only case study which makes an appearance is Temple Israel in Boston. It's not an irony lost on me. But the 90s were this period of a long-standing tension between the professional cantorial tradition and the grassroots song leader movement. And over time, these institutions started to change, but they grappled with how to do it, how to actually get people to sing, how to get people to take hold of their communities and to actually make it happen. And so Temple Israel did something really remarkable in what they called the Purple Service. And so I'm hoping that Cantor Einhorn will share a little bit about the Purple Service, a little bit about what the move to the atrium was like, and then I think he's gonna offer us, we're gonna, just as we did 2 Shalom Ravs, we'll do 2 Ve'al Kulams as a window into that period. So Cantor Einhorn.
The purple service.
Yes.
Purple service.
Now I lost it too.
Rabbi Elaine Zecker created the purple service. It was an alternate experience for congregants who didn't want to sit in fixed seating and have a professional octet of voices and an organ playing and the cantor singing, mostly without guitar, mostly with the organist playing. And that worked for a segment of the congregation, and for the other segment of the congregation, they wanted a guitar, they wanted participatory music, and so I always did the purple service. I used the guitar, and Mark Feldhusen, who plays here occasionally, was with me for 25 years there, and he played the piano, and it was guitar, piano, and the congregation. And you're going to hear the difference between these two settings. The one first, Zach mentioned Herbert Fromm, who was an amazing composer. He was a cerebral composer. He understood music theory like nobody's business, and he wrote music that most people couldn't sing along with. Ritzei, Ritzei, Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu, B'amcha Yisrael, Ute, sopranos, Utehi Leratzon, the tenors, Utehi Leratzon, Tamid, Avodat Yisrael, Amen, Baruch Atah Adon. This was all in the main sanctuary. But in the purple service, it sounded different. So I'm going to sing the one song that Herbert wrote. Herbert also, Cantor Murray Simon was at Temple Israel 10 years before I got there, and Herbert Fromm passed the mantle to Cantor Simon. But Herbert stayed in the building, and he stayed in the lower level, and he had a small room, which became a part of the preschool later on. He had a couch, and he had his writing desk. And he would go in every day, and he would compose music. And then he would take a nap, have a little lunch, compose a little more, and then go home. He did this 5 days a week. And it was a wonderful relationship. Of course, I couldn't sing some of the stuff that he wanted me to sing because it just wasn't who I was. But he represented that whole world of through composed Germanic music. So this is, there it goes again. Can't you guys afford music stands that work in here? At the prestigious temple down the road, we have music stands that work. Maestro. V'al kulam Eloah selichot tzilach lanu mechalanu kaper lanu V'al kulam Eloah slichot slach lanu mechalanu slach lanu mechalanu kaper lanu. My first voice teacher in Boston was in Herbert Fromm's choir, and she said she was deathly afraid of him.
We still are years later. So if on the East Coast, Herbert Fromm was writing these majestic settings for Cantor Einhorn and the Temple Israel Choir, On the West Coast, there was a gentleman by the name of Craig Taubman who was bringing together herds of young people at this program called Friday Night Live. A little bit different than the TV show. And they had settings which sounded just a little bit different. Sounds like this. Ve'al kulam eleh slichot. Slach lanu, slach lanu, mechalanu, kapel lanu. Ve'al kulam eleh slichot. Slach lanu, slach lanu, mechalanu, kapel lanu. Please, yes. Two incredibly different ways to apologize on Yom Kippur. And I hope in that the difference between these things and also the reality that change is remarkably individual. I chose Temple Israel because they had these Xeroxed services. And I could make a joke about a Xerox printer, but I'll refrain. They had these Xerox services, which were compilations of different liturgies because the prayer book at the time wasn't serving their needs. And so it underpins this larger question of as our theology and our liturgy is changing, so too do we need new prayer books. And so too do our books and the things which represent our liturgies need to change. And so that takes us to chapter 7, which is the final chapter, which is the 2007 publication of Mishkan Tefillah and the left side of the page. So just as Temple Israel left us understanding and trying to figure out how to bring all of these together, by the 21st century and by the 2000s, American Judaism stood at a moment of long anticipated realization. For more than half of a century, the movement had wrestled with balancing decorum and participation, tradition and accessibility, artistry and congregational ownership. At the same time, these thought leaders needed places to convene, to come together, and to share out this work. And so a couple of projects were born. Synagogue 2000, led by Mary Lovinger-Arian, who we heard from earlier, was born. Cantor Klepper, and others created Havana Shira at Osrui, and so too was the URJ Biennial around this time. And selfishly, I'm a Boston guy, I had to pick the Boston logo. But these convenings were opportunities for people to come together, to dream up how to operationalize this change, and to understand what the future of American Judaism would look like. By 2000, the organ had almost entirely disappeared from the Reform synagogue, and in their place were synagogue bands. Acoustic engineering and production technologies, as you can see here, began to roll out. And as many interviewees observed, the goal of congregational life was no longer to impress people with the beauty or majesty, but to draw people into a shared sound. Comfort, repetition, and accessibility were no longer viewed as compromises, but virtues of Reformed Jewish life. And in so many ways, the 2007 publication of the prayer book, which sits below you, Mishkan Tefillah, did not create this transformation, but it codified existing developments. The prayer book's architectural innovation in many ways was placing interpretive poetry and theological alternatives on the left side of the page in comparison to the liturgy. And at this same moment, the long-awaited feminization of Jewish ritual life and the massive sea change of women's role in the cantorate and in synagogue life was taking place. And also, Debbie Friedman was appointed to the faculty of the Hebrew Union College, now Jewish Institute of Religion, School of Sacred Music in 2007. On the faculty, she wrote this piece, Shalom Alechem, which Cantor Safran and I wanted to share this evening now. That afternoon, we've been here a while.
I'm going to share with you.
Absolutely. That way it doesn't fall. Let's join together. If you know it, please do sing along. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi-melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Elyon, Mi-melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi-melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi-melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So this concert this evening ends, as I mentioned, Debbie Friedman's 2007 appointment, and then Mishkan Tefillah. No. No one saw a thing. Because it's a surprise. This concert ends with the composition of Am I Awake, which is both personally meaningful, as I was a third grader sitting right about where you are, Mia, when Noah Aronson brought the song forward, but also because it marks in some ways a return. We've now taken the left side of the page and brought it to life. Participatory music is in full form, but we're asking the theological questions of how do we meet this moment? And rather than me tell you about the piece, I thought I'd let the maestro do it himself. So we have a surprise from Noah, and so we'll listen in.
Hello, TBE friends and family. I so wish I could be there. Thank you, Zach, for all of the hard work and all of the intentionality that you brought to this project. I want to give a special shout out to Cantor Suffren and Cantor Zell. I miss singing with you, and Spike, of course, if you're out there. I just miss making music with all of you guys on a regular basis, and so I'm honored to have found a way to be part of this in some meaningful way. I was asked to speak a little bit about Am I Awake, and that song was actually created in 2006. I was a teacher in the religious school at the time, and I was asked to teach the Baruch Hu to the group of third graders, and I didn't know exactly what I was doing, and so I started a dialogue and have a back and forth with the kids, and one kid came up and she said, praying is about asking ourselves if we are awake, and so that lit me up, and it was such a brilliant thing to say, and so then I went home that day and then started jotting down some of the conversations that we were having in that session, and the following week I kind of put them together in lyrics that sounded nice, and then we sang them, and that's how we entered into the Baruch Hu, and then it kind of took off from there. But it started as just it was meant to kind of help us get into the Baruch Hu for religious school tefillah. And it's now taken off, and people around the world are singing this melody in communities I've never even been to. So that's the power of a powerful melody. It can go beyond the walls at TBE. I think that it resonates for people for a couple different reasons. A lot of my melodies have the yai lai lai nigun in them because, as my friend Alana Arian's mother, Mary Arian, teaches, that singing a nigun levels the praying field. And so it's a way that it bypasses the brain, bypasses the logical mind. It goes right to the heart and says, you know what, it doesn't matter if I don't know the words. It doesn't matter if I don't understand the meaning. I just am here to connect. I'm to connect to something larger than myself. And so that is where the nigun comes from. And then the English words are kind of meeting us where we're at in the moment. And then once the words are no longer good enough, we thrust into melody and song and community, so we hear the sound and the feeling of being wrapped by the sound of the congregation, which happens every single week at TBE. I know, I felt it. And that is the intentionality, and that's the place that we want to be when we enter into the Baruch Hu. So I so wish that I could be there with you. It's just to hear what it sounds like, to hear your voices singing that melody. It always means so much to me. So Shabbat Shalom, and may you continue to sing this melody for years and years to come.
Shabbat Shalom, Noah. And what Noah didn't mention is that in so many ways, the creation and popularization of this melody is the most wonderful example of everything of this. He received the text in this new prayer book in Mishkan Tefillah of Baruch Hu in this new setting with left side of the page, encouraging the influence of poetry. He brought it to Mary Arian at Havana Shira and debuted it, and she was like, whoa, there's something really wonderful in here. And through technology, through the advent of this digital sphere, it went nuts, and it became incredibly viral. So it's my great pleasure to invite up our whole team. Come sing. Come join together. You can stay seated. We'll begin with questions. We'll turn to Yai Lai Lais, and we'll wrap up together.
Start this side.
Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la la la, ya la la la, ya la la la, ya la la la. Am I awake? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I breathing? Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la la. Thank you, Cantors. Thank you, Morgan. So to conclude, I wanted to return to the words of the Talmud, Da lifnei mi ata omed, know before whom you stand. Only this time I want to offer that the whom in mention is not a God on high, but the whom is each of us around us. It is the community that we co-create. It is the theology that we share, and it is the music and the magic of the spirituality that happens in this room when strangers from different backgrounds and worlds and corners of our earth come together to sing and to make music and to move our world forward.